Welcome back. So, we've got a few upcoming activities that we'll talk about, and then I'm going to show you some example work from the course. So, individual meetings with myself. Next week, I will email out a schedule, and these will just be informal meetings in my office, just to have a chat. It lets me find out a little bit more about you, about your background, about what you're interested in, and about what you would like to achieve from this course. Okay? You don't need to prepare anything. Just turn up at the time and we'll have a meeting. Okay? Then we've got a trip, just a short trip on the 6th of October, and it's we're going to go to Energy 2015 and Timber Expo. Last year we went to Timber Expo, and what these are is it's a big event where you've got a range from sort of product fabricators, design specialists showing their products. There's a whole range of seminars by really interesting people throughout the day talking about energy, about renewable energy, about energy systems, and in Timber Expo talking about the use of timber in buildings and in our cities. They're free events. The format is they're held in Birmingham NEC, which is a big conference centre, huge facility, and there's a range of events going on at the same time, but these are probably the most interesting for us. You'll see when you go to the website, there's also the surface design expo is on, and there's something called Grand Designs Live, which is also running. So it's a really busy place, lots going on, and we're going to go again this year. It's very informal, so when you get there, you can walk around, look at the exhibits, talk to people. You can go and join lectures. You don't need to book, you just turn up. You can walk from Expo to Expo, so you can go to Timber Expo, then you can walk to Energy 2015. And we found last year it was just really interesting. You get to see products firsthand. There are people showing huge pieces of timber. You can talk about how they fix them together. And then some of the lectures are really inspirational, really interesting. So I'd like to go again this year. We run it just as an informal day. You book your own train ticket. There's information on the SAS website about where you can book a train ticket. You need to go to the website to book your ticket, but it is free. But you do need to book a ticket. The train, if you book it in advance, it's about £42 return to Birmingham NEC. And the schedule for the day, it's very informal. We'll all arrive at about 10 o'clock. We'll meet up, maybe have a quick drink in a cafe, and then we all go off and explore, see what's on show. It's just really interesting. I've put on the website a link to interesting buildings in Birmingham. So if you've never been to Birmingham before and you want to stay for the evening, feel free. Or if you just want to jump back on the train, come back to Sheffield. So it's just the first trip that we run. Just some really interesting things to see. Okay. So, but I encourage you all to come along. It's also just an opportunity for us to meet each other and for you to meet each other. in a kind of informal setting. Okay, but last year certainly some of the projects at the end of the year were inspired by some of the timber that we saw at Timber Expo. So it's nice when you see that connection. Okay. Registration forms. Now, these forms you have to take to, you know about the PGT registration event, yeah? You've got information about that. These forms you just need to take along. And yeah, what is confusing, I have to admit, we have completed your option choices here for you, but those are not your real option choices. Florian mentioned it yesterday. It's a funny thing. For the university, we have to demonstrate that you have 180 credits, that you're registered for 180 credits. So we put you down for 2 option modules, even though those are not the ones that you've chosen. It doesn't matter. It's just so that the university know that you're registered for a full master's program. Okay? So don't be worried if you look on here and think those are not my option modules. Alright? Let me give those out now. So, okay. I'll be up name here, and if you're here, put your hand up. Anna Clara Penna? That's you. There you go. Okay. Dania Reswari? No. Azli Zawati Ibrahim? Dong Shu Fu? Irene Cheng? Jia Chen Zhang? Jun Zie? You have to forgive my pronunciation. Jun Zie?
Oh, the is
Maria Engelsu. You have to give me, I need about 3 weeks to remember names. Okay? So, please forgive me if I don't know your name or I call you the wrong name, but just tell me. Okay? Napa Chanok. Pratiksha Kiran Kumar Renaka. Saifuddin Sada. Siu Duan. Tianyi Zheng. Zi Chen. Xiaojing Zhu. Yu Wang. No. Yunki Zhu. Yuting Huang.
Yeah.
YouTube. That's registration forms. Example work. We'll come to that in just a minute. Okay, just one other thing to say is we'll arrange a SAS social event in the next few weeks. Okay, not everybody's arrived yet, so I want to leave it a few weeks. We've got 1 or 2 students who are arriving a little bit late. But what we'll do is we'll arrange a social event, probably something like dinner out one evening somewhere in Sheffield. Just something informal, just to give us a chance to meet each other. Okay, because you'll be spending a year in each other's company. Okay. Depending on which studio you end up in, you'll work more closely with those people in your studio, but in your modules you'll be working with each other, you'll be sat in the same lecture theatre. So, we normally find that people on the SAS course, they really get to know each other. And because we've got about 22 to 26 students normally, it's not so big that you can't know everybody. In MAD, which is next door, because they've got about 30 to 40 to 50, it's too big to really know everybody. But we like to keep it it's quite friendly. You get to know everybody. Okay. When you have your studio field trips, you'll go away for say 5 days with the people in your studio, and that's always a really good opportunity to get to know people as well. Right. Let's look at some example work. Right. What I'm going to do is just show you a few example pieces of work. All of this work will be made available for you to have a look at in your own time. It doesn't mean that this is the kind of work you need to produce, but I just want to give you an overview of what work we've been producing. So we'll go first into environmental simulation and analysis. And let's try this one. So in this module, the assessment, you're given a building. So you don't have to design a building, but you're placed in the scenario as if you're a sustainable design consultant advising on this building. And what you're then asked to do is to make a report where you're using the simulation skills that you've learned to test and evaluate this building. The site, we just use a site in front of the Arts Tower. It's very simple. So there's elements of modelling. We teach some of the skills for modelling. Here we've got wind flow simulation. More wind flow. We've got shadow analysis here. Here we've got cumulative shadow analysis. This is the building that you're working on. Solar radiation, looking at the impact of that building on the surrounding buildings, looking at the amount of energy you can get from the sun, looking at that in more detail, looking at possible photovoltaic arrangements, looking at building energy consumption on a conceptual level, just an early stage design level, looking at some different options there and testing the energy usage, and then moving into a more detailed building model to look at energy consumption, moving into daylight simulation, simulating the daylight qualities in that building. Then moving into shading. So the student here is trying different shading configurations. And conclusions. So that's a that's an example. That's a 15 credit module. All of the software that you've seen here is taught in the module. You're not expected to know anything in advance. And by the time you've completed that module, you're able to perform those types of simulations. It's assessed through a 20-page report, which, as you can see, is made up of text, but there's a lot of images as well. And that's a kind of typical 15 credit assessment. Okay. Let's look at renewable energy, which is, these are all core modules, so you have no choice. You have to take these. Okay. So renewable energy. Sorry. This is again assessed through a report, and in the renewable energy module, which is in semester 2, the students are applying the skills and the understanding they've learnt in their studio design work. So they're looking at different types of renewable energy, they're assessing the feasibility, a little bit of research into the types. There's some analysis of potential performance, looking at the climate data, and then starting to see how that could possibly be applied onto the student's project. There's a cost analysis normally carried out. So again, it's about a sort of 20-page report for a 15 credit module. So that's an example. Let's go. Oh no, sorry. Principles of building physics. Let's try that one. In this module, you're asked to investigate a case study building. So we recommend a few good examples, but you're free to choose your own as well. And you're applying the understanding that you've learnt through the lecture course in your appraisal of this building. So in this example, the student was looking at the Information Commons, which is one of the university's buildings. And there's sort of background, there's some research into the history of the building, key sustainable strategies, talking about climate change, the construction, looking at daylighting, taking some readings on site, so starting to take some measurements on site to understand the performance, ventilation, thermal comfort, humidity, acoustics, and materials selection. So very much applying the skills learnt in the lectures to assess a building case study. And again, that's a 20-page A3 report for a 15 credit module. Okay, if we look at the design projects now, Sustainable Design 1 is 15 credits delivered in semester 1. So it's a quite short project. And let's just have a look. So depending on which studio you're in, you have different projects, different briefs, different site. This was a studio which I ran, and in semester 1 we based ourselves in Sheffield. We did some work looking at aspects of some of the buildings in Sheffield, and our particular interest was in envelopes, was in building skins. So there's some sort of background research into that. We did some group work where we looked at the Sheffield University campus, and there's different types of analysis of the proposals. So this is all a short group project you're seeing here. I'll just go through that quickly. Looking at different energy solutions for the University of Sheffield. Again, this is group work. I'll just go through that quickly. Then the student moved on to their own design proposals. And this student was definitely influenced by Timber Expo, and they wanted to look at high-rise timber buildings. So they've identified a site, and in semester one we're not really getting into detailed design, but starting to look at design solutions, design options, and starting to use some of those simulation skills that have been learned. So here we have radiation studies on the proposal and the adjacent buildings, looking at lighting levels, and then starting to model possible design solutions. And that's the sort of final. So that's the semester one portfolio. So it's a mixture of group work, individual work. If we then look at semester two, so design project 2, because it's a 30 credit module, you've got a lot more time. And what I'll do is I'll show you the same students' project in semester 2. And what we did in the studio in semester 2 is we moved to a different climate zone. So we'd worked in the UK. We can't travel all the way across the world. So we went to Switzerland, which is it's not a hugely different climate zone, but it has different climate aspects. So we went on a field trip to Basel, Zurich and Lucerne, and the students found sites in those cities to develop. So in this case, the student was working in Lucerne. Initial sketch ideas, precedent, starting to model the site, wind flow analysis, solar analysis of the site, and starting to model the proposals on the site. Just go through that quite quickly. And what we offered the students the option was, once they'd completed a short project in Switzerland, they had a choice. They could either continue that project in Switzerland into more detail, or they could go back to their Sheffield project and develop that in more detail, or they could pursue something else altogether, which was more research-based. And in this example, the student decided to go back to the Sheffield project and develop that in more detail. So they went back to that first project, which we've seen before, and they moved it into a much higher level of resolution. And here, what this student was doing was integrating the skills learned in the, I think it was the parametric architectural geometry module, and to apply those onto their building. And so what they are actually doing here is linking the radiation values on the building into a shading device which is parametrically controlled. And this is daylight analysis, and some visualizations of the building. Building plans. And some visualizations of the final project. And I think this is a good example where the work that you're seeing here, when the student arrived at the course, they had none of these skills. So the simulation skills, the parametric skills, the ability to kind of render visualizations like this, they had none of those skills when they arrived. So they're all delivered through the modules. And what's really nice is when we see all of those skills coming together into a project. Okay, so that's an example of a really good studio project. Right. Let me quickly show you some thesis examples. So if we start with a written dissertation, so this example here, inhabited double-skin facades, and it's a more traditional written document. It's A4, but it's got images in it. It's 10,000 words. And it's quite a substantial piece of research and written analysis. And I mean, obviously you can't read this, but it's an academic piece of work. There is correct referencing. There's an argument, and it's supplemented with images, which sometimes the student has made themselves. Sometimes they are sourced from other references. And this was an interest that this student developed throughout the year, so they pursued it in their thesis. Okay, so a kind of traditional written thesis. I'll just show you a slightly more technical one, if I can. Maybe this one. No. I'm trying to find you a slightly more technical example. So, comfort and environmental control in student homes related to habits and practices. So this is a written thesis, and as you can see, it's mainly words. Okay, it's a more kind of traditional dissertation with some words. There are some images, but it's largely a written document. I think there's some survey. In this example, the student was interviewing people who were living in Sheffield. And then at the back you have the kind of the appendix of all the research. So those are two examples of written thesis, which is, you know, fairly kind of conventional. Now, design thesis is very different, because you've got a design portfolio and a design report. And let me find an example here. So if we look, first of all, at the portfolio. So this is an A1 portfolio. This student is looking at housing in Chile. And because it's a design project, there is a site, and there's site analysis. And then the student progresses with the design. And there's simulation, sketch ideas. And it's very much about pursuing a research idea through a design project. So here's the design work, simulation. There's a much greater level and depth of simulation here. And then we get some final kind of visualizations of the scheme. And there's a model. Okay, so that's the portfolio. If we look at the design report for the same scheme, so the design report, because it has up to 4,000 words, is where you can give the kind of criticality of the project. And you can describe the research, you can describe the methodology, you can talk about the limitations of the project, as well as summarizing the design. So that's an example of a design report. It's 4,000 words. In this case, it's about 20 pages of A4. All right. So, really, that's just to give you a quick overview of some of the types of work that you will be producing. Okay, I think that will do for today. Anybody got any questions? Okay. If you have any questions over the coming days, drop me an email. Okay, you've got my email address. If it's something that I can just answer, I'll just write back to you. If I think we need to have a discussion about it, I'll suggest that we have a meeting. Okay? You must check your emails every day. In fact, every hour, I would suggest. You can, on your mobile device, there is a Google Mail app, which is very good. You can receive your university email through your normal mail as well. But I find if you install the Google Mail app, it just unlocks the full capabilities of Google Mail, and you can do some really smart things like I could email you now and attach a document from Google Drive, which is not stored on my phone, but I can do that. But we generally, as a department, we communicate via email. So keep checking your emails all the time. All right. I'll send out for our meetings next week. I'll send out a timetable so that you know when you're meeting me. All right. But as I say, if you've got any problems, you've got Alana in the general office. I'm sure Alana has been emailing you. If it's just a sort of a query about registration, just ask Alana. But if it's something that you want to ask me, just send me an email. Okay.
So the decision about the module will be till Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
And then we will have our timetable classes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So it starts next week?
Yeah. So this is what we call intro week. Next week is week 1, which is the official start of the academic year. But what we do is we don't schedule teaching in week one because students arrive late, you're busy finding your feet, you know, you're just busy settling in. So we normally leave it for the first week, but then in week 2 your classes will start and you'll have a timetable so you'll know exactly where you should be. Okay. The design studios don't start until week 7. So you have a 6-week period where you can concentrate on your modules and on your classes, and then the design projects will start. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and what about this Teamwork Expo? We will be like receiving emails about it, like organizing trip?
No. I mean, it's on the SAS website. There's a little bit of information here, and really it's quite informal. All I've suggested is that you make your way to Birmingham NEC. You can get a train from Sheffield to Birmingham NEC. There's a link here for booking train tickets. There's a link here for reserving your ticket for the event, and really I've just suggested 10 to 10:30 we meet up there. We won't stay together for the full day because there's all sorts of things going on, but we'll meet up in the morning. We might have lunch together, but I remember last year the different food places were they were very expensive and they weren't that good, so in the end we didn't all meet for lunch because it was going to be very expensive. So, but it's just an informal day. We'll bump into each other. We'll meet in the morning. But no, I mean I'm not going to organise anything more. It's more a case just of get yourself to Birmingham NEC, get yourself a ticket, and then it's just an informal day. I mean it's fairly similar when we run field trips. Because you're master's level, postgraduate level, we don't kind of arrange it all for you. We normally agree where we're staying, agree on say the cheap flights, and often we just individually book our own tickets. And some students like to stay a bit longer, and some students might go out earlier. But because you're postgraduates, we can have that arrangement where we just kind of meet you there. In the undergraduate course, we'd book all your tickets, we'd arrange buses for you, but you're all adults, so we don't need to do that. Okay, so what you'll find is the first few weeks are quite light in terms of teaching, and you can just get settled in. Then weeks 2 through to 2, 3, 4 and 5, your classes start, but we don't overload you because there's quite a lot to take in those classes. Then when the studios start, you've got your studio design project running at the same time as other classes, and then the workload increases. Okay?
Do you have to take this form with us for registration? Or?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I never understand why we have to take this piece of paper. I think it's just a means of we demonstrate to the university that you are enrolled on this course, and then they will register you. Okay. I'm afraid I believe you have to queue. I think for the registration event you end up having to queue and wait. I'm sorry about that. Okay. The other thing I would say is spend a long time looking at the architecture website. So if you want to find it, if you just go to the Sheffield website, type in architecture into the search, School of Architecture. You know, really spend half a day looking through everything that's on the website. You can find out about people. Click on the people. You know, you can, for any of our staff, you can click on, you can have a look, find out about them, find out about their research. Really important as well later on, when you're starting to think about your thesis subject, is to know what the kind of specialist areas of our staff are. And often you might choose something that relates to one of those specialisms. So yeah, we've got people, if you go to About, you've got all sorts of things about the school, facilities, links you through to our technical workshops, which have their own website. That explains you everything you need to know about what equipment we've got, how you borrow equipment, where our workshops are, how do you book a laser cutter. The information is all there. The different undergraduate programs, you can find out about that. If you go to downloads, you can download the exhibition catalogue from previous years, various publications, course handbooks, research in the school, find out all about the different research that's taking place. So there's a lot of information on there to help you find out about the school. Okay. Anybody? Any questions? Okay. Yes. Sorry, say that again, please. Yeah, they will be. Yeah. The mole sites will not be fully updated until week 1, because the semester has not started yet. So when you look on your mole sites now, you'll find that they've not been updated. You need to wait until probably next Monday, and they'll all be updated. Yeah. Okay. Right, we'll leave it there.